Welcome to the deep dive. We take the sources you send us and really try to pull out the key insights you need, in a way that's quick but also sticks with you.
That's the goal.
And today, based on the material you provided, our mission is to get into the nuts and bolts of human interaction. Find those practical takeaways you can actually use.
Yeah, and you've pointed us towards some fascinating stuff centered really around Dale Carnegie's classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Wow.
It's amazing. Back in 1937, the first print run was tiny, like 5,000 copies.
Wow.
Nobody, not Carnegie, not the publishers, had any clue it would become, well, what it became.
It was huge, wasn't it? Just exploded overnight and kept going, became this massive international bestseller. Carnegie himself said getting a bestseller in English was harder than making $1 million.
He did say that. And it's not like it faded away.
No, not at all. It just keeps resonating generation after generation, translated into pretty much every language you can think of.
And the title itself, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's practically part of the language now, isn't it? You hear it referenced everywhere.
So what's the secret sauce then? I mean, it wasn't just dreamed up in an office, right? It came from his courses.
Exactly. It grew directly out of his adult education classes.
Yeah.
We're talking 15 years of real-world research, testing these ideas, seeing what worked with thousands of actual adults.
That's crucial, I think. These aren't just abstract theories.
Not at all. They're based on results. Carnegie saw firsthand how these principles changed things. Businesses saw profits go up, sales improve, people gained authority. Sometimes it even saved someone's job. Real impact.
Right. So for you listening, wanting that knowledge quickly but still thoroughly, this deep dive is basically your shortcut. We're unpacking actionable stuff you can use right away to build better connections at work, at home, wherever.
Let's dive in.
Okay, first fundamental principle. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Sounds simple, maybe even obvious.
It does on the surface, But Carnegie digs into why it's so important. He uses these really striking examples, like Two-Gun Crowley, the killer.
Right, and Al Capone.
Yeah. Even facing execution or prison, neither of them blamed themselves. Crowley felt he was defending himself. Capone saw himself as, like, a public servant providing fun who was just unappreciated.
It's kind of mind-boggling, but it shows that deep human thing, doesn't it? Criticism just makes people defensive, doesn't usually lead to change.
Exactly. It triggers justification, not correction. And Carnegie brings it down to earth, too, with John Wanamaker, the department store guy.
Oh, yeah, what did he say?
He basically realized it was foolish to scold others because, well, he had enough trouble overcoming his own limitations without worrying about God distributing intelligence unevenly, as he put it.
Okay.
And then there's the Teapot Dome scandal. Huge public outcry, condemnation everywhere. But did it make the people involved suddenly see the error of their ways in that moment? Probably not.
So criticism is generally futile. But then he contrasts this with Abraham Lincoln, which is really interesting. Lincoln wasn't always so reserved, was he?
No, not at all. Early on, he was known for being quite critical, writing satirical letters that really burned bridges, created enemies. But he learned the hard way about human nature.
And his restraint later, especially during the Civil War, is pretty remarkable.
It really is. Take that letter to General Meade after Gettysburg. Lee's army escaped, a massive missed opportunity. Lincoln was deeply distressed.
Immensely.
But the letter he wrote, while expressing that deep disappointment, "Your golden opportunity is gone, and I am distressed immeasurably because of it," it wasn't a personal attack. It focused on the misfortune, the lost chance, not on Meade's incompetence, even though he felt it.
That's a powerful distinction, pointing out the failure without making it a direct character assault, focusing on consequences, not blame.
Precisely. And to make it even more relatable, Carnegie includes that story, Father Forgets. It's about a dad who just constantly nags his young son. Shoes dirty, face not dried right, stuff on the floor. You know, the drill.
Oh, I think many parents can relate to that feeling.
Right. But then later, seeing the boy asleep, the father is just overwhelmed with remorse. He realizes he was judging his kid by adult standards, constantly finding fault, missing the good kid underneath all the, kid behavior.
That hits home. Recognizing their little heart is as big as the dawn and regretting the harshness. The insight there is powerful. We often default to criticism with loved ones because we impose our own standards.
Yeah, we forget they're just being kids or just being human. Shifting from fault-finding to seeing the good can change everything.
So, takeaway number 1, don't kick the beehive if you want the honey. Avoid criticism.
You got it. Which flows perfectly into the second principle. Give honest and sincere appreciation. This gets to the heart of motivation.
Okay, so the idea is you can only get someone to do something by making them want to do it. Carnegie mentions Freud, the sex urge and desire to be great, and Dewey, the desire to be important. That need for importance seems key.
It's absolutely central. And he stresses genuine fulfillment of that desire, not just empty gestures, like the story of the uncle sending blank checks.
Oh, yeah, expecting huge gratitude for nothing, basically.
Exactly. The polite but dismissive thank you notes he got showed how ineffective that was. Real appreciation has to connect with a real need or desire for recognition. It can't be
It
faked.
needs substance, like the story about Stan Novak's son Tim, who wouldn't go to kindergarten.
Right. Instead of forcing him, Stan and his wife thought, okay, what would actually make Tim want to go? What's fun for a kid?
Finger painting, songs, friends.
Yep. So they started doing that stuff at home, finger painting on the kitchen table, singing kindergarten songs. They built up the excitement so much that Tim suddenly couldn't wait to go, fearing he'd miss out. They aroused a desire in him.
That's clever. Understanding his world, his desires.
And it works with adults, too. Carnegie used it himself, negotiating rent for his lectures. Instead of arguing price, he focused on the hotel manager's advantage.
How so?
He pointed out how having Carnegie's lectures there would draw crowds and that the ballroom would be free for the manager to book more profitable banquets and dances on the nights Carnegie wasn't there. He framed it entirely around the manager's potential gain.
Ah, so he made it seem like doing Carnegie a favor was actually good business for the hotel.
Exactly. He barely mentioned what he wanted. It perfectly illustrates Henry Ford's point. The secret to success is getting the other person's point of view. See things from their angle.
He also shows what not to do, right? With those ineffective advertising letters.
Oh, definitely. Letters totally focused on what the sender wants, ignoring the recipient, like that freight terminal superintendent writing to Mr. Vermeulen.
What was wrong with that one?
It went on and on about the terminal's problems, trucks arriving late, causing backups, stuff Vermeulen didn't care about at all. Only at the very end did it briefly mention the customer's benefit, faster unloading. Vermeulen said it actually made him less likely to cooperate.
Because it was all about the sender's problem, not his solution.
Precisely. Contrast that with Barbara Anderson's job application letter.
The successful one?
Yeah. She didn't just say, I want a job. She focused on how her 10 years of banking experience could specifically help the banks she was writing to in Phoenix. Result: interviews at 11 out of 12 banks.
Because she framed it around their needs, what she could offer them.
Exactly. She spoke their language. Owen DeYoung believes strongly in this, the power of unselfish service, of really understanding other people's minds. He said people who can put themselves in others' shoes never need worry about the future.
It's about empathy, really.
Fundamentally. And it applies to small things too. The kid who wouldn't eat. Nagging failed. Framing it around his desire wanting to be big and strong worked.
Or the little girl making breakfast.
Yeah, KT Dutchman's daughter. She wasn't ordered to. She wanted to because it made her feel grown up like her mom, appealing to that desire to imitate and feel important.
It all comes back to understanding that people are primarily interested in themselves.
Overwhelmingly so. That New York telephone company study, the word I was the most used word in phone calls. It's just human nature.
And Adler, the psychologist, said people uninterested in others cause the most harm and have the hardest lives.
It's a crucial insight. Shifting focus off yourself and genuinely engaging with others is key, which leads right into cultivating genuine interest. Theodore Roosevelt was a master at this.
His popularity wasn't just political, was it?
No, even his staff adored him. His valet, James Amos, told stories about Roosevelt doing small, thoughtful things like calling his wife specifically to tell her about a bird he saw outside her window because he knew she'd like it.
Just showing he noticed, he cared about what mattered to them.
Exactly. Not grand gestures, just simple, sincere interest. Carnegie found he could get busy authors to speak for him just by showing genuine admiration for their work. Mrs. Rosedale stayed loyal to her bank for years because one teller showed real concern when her mother was sick.
It's those small human connections.
They make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Charles Walters got vital info by showing interest in a bank president's stamp collection. C.M. Naffel finally sold fuel after years of trying, only when he stopped arguing and started asking for the executive's perspective, showing interest in his views on their debate.
Even in difficult situations, like the lonely patient in the hospital on Thanksgiving.
Yes, the student nurse's simple, genuine kindness had a huge impact. It all boils down to that first principle of dealing with people. Become genuinely interested in other people.
Okay, so that's interest. Principle number 3, smile. Seems pretty straightforward.
Well, Yes, but Carnegie emphasizes it's not just any smile. It's the genuine, warm, from-the-heart smile, the one that says, I'm glad to see you. Professor McConnell argued smiling people are just more effective managers, teachers, salespeople, even parents.
He said there's more information in a smile than a frown.
Exactly. And that story about the department store preferring a smiling clerk with less education over a gloomy PhD, that says a lot.
It really does. The power of presence.
And that concept of phone power, how a smile actually comes through in your voice, it changes the tone. The chairman who said people rarely succeed unless they enjoy their work. A smile is often part of that enjoyment, that positive attitude.
And the story of Bill Steinhardt, the self-proclaimed worst grouch.
Yeah, he consciously decided to start smiling more. And it genuinely changed things for him at home and work. Made him happier, improved his marriage.
Even forcing a smile can sometimes help.
Carnegie suggests it can. Acting happy can sometimes lead to feeling happy. It's like that old Chinese proverb, a man without a smiling face must not open a shop. It's timeless wisdom.
A smile is like a messenger of goodwill, especially valuable when people are stressed.
Absolutely. That New York department store's Christmas philosophy summed it up beautifully. Costs nothing, creates much, enriches everyone, leaves lasting happiness.
Okay. Principle 4. Remember that a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language. This feels really personal.
It is intensely personal.
Yeah.
Think of Jim Farley Roosevelt's campaign manager. He supposedly knew tens of thousands of names. That ability was a huge political asset.
Remembering names built connections.
Absolutely. Carnegie himself used it strategically, securing the merger with Pullman. Suggesting the name Pullman Palace Car Company, honoring Pullman's name, was the key move.
Giving credit, showing respect through the name.
Precisely. Even Roosevelt remembered the name of a mechanic at the White House. It made that mechanic feel seen, feel important.
The political lesson. To recall a voter's name is statesmanship. To forget it is oblivion.
Stark, but true. And it applies everywhere. Business, social life. Napoleon III apparently had a whole system for it. Repeat the name, spell it, associate it with features, write it down.
Whatever works, right? Like Ken Nottingham and Eunice, the sandwich lady.
Yeah, just using her name, hello Eunice, turned her from grumpy to generous. A name is unique to that person. Using it shows you recognize them as an individual. It adds weight.
Okay, so names are crucial. Principle 5, be a good listener, encourage others to talk about themselves. This seems almost counterintuitive if you want to be seen as interesting.
Right, but Carnegie flips it. He found that being a great listener often makes people see you as a great conversationalist. Like when he listened intently to that botanist for hours.
And the botanist thought Carnegie was fascinating, even though he barely spoke.
Exactly, because Carnegie gave him his full attention. Charles W. Eliot, the Harvard president, called that kind of exclusive attention the highest form of flattery. Henry James remembered Eliot's incredibly focused listening style.
It's about making the other person feel truly heard. Like Mr. Detmer and the angry customer.
Yes. The customer had a billing complaint, was really worked up. Detmer just listened patiently, let him vent. Not only did it diffuse the situation, the guy placed a bigger order and later even named his son Detmer.
Wow. All from listening.
It's powerful. Think of the Western Union boy who educated himself just by listening to and writing to the famous people who came through. Or Sigmund Freud, renowned for his deep listening skills.
So the key isn't to talk more, but to listen better.
Definitely. Nicholas Murray Butler said, people who only talk about themselves are hopelessly uneducated, no matter their degrees. So ask questions people enjoy answering. Encourage them to share their stories, their successes. Remember, they're usually way more interested in themselves than in you.
Like the bread salesman who finally got the big hotel order.
Exactly. He failed until he stopped pushing his product and started listening to what the hotel steward was actually interested in the steward's own challenges and goals.
Oh.
Or Edward Harriman getting a job by researching R.J. Funkhauser's interests first.
Talking in terms of the other person's interests.
That's principle 5, yes. And it connects to that story of Mr. Rowland and the shy student, Chris.
Oh, the one who got into the advanced class.
Right. Rowland listened, saw Chris's potential despite his quietness, praised his contribution, and offered him that spot. It met Chris's deep, unspoken desire for recognition. That sign in Rowland's class, "You are important," says it all.
It's powerful, like the lawyer getting the Packard from his aunt just by appreciating her things, listening to her life stories.
Or James Adamson getting that huge order from George Eastman by genuinely admiring Eastman's office and his philanthropy.
Mhm.
Or Claude Murray keeping a key employee just by sincerely appreciating her value. It's all connected.
So listen well, encourage them to talk, and talk about their interests, which leads to Principle 6. Make the other person feel important and do it sincerely. This feels like it pulls a lot together.
It really does. And it's a great bridge to part 3 of the book, How to Win People to Your Way of Thinking. The very first principle there is a big one. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it.
Carnegie learned that himself, didn't he? He used to love arguing.
He admits it freely, but he realized you just can't win. Even if you're logically right, you often hurt the other person's pride, make them resentful. You win the point, maybe, but lose the goodwill.
Like Patrick O'Hare, the salesman who turned things around.
Yeah, he went from being argumentative and unsuccessful to being top salesman just by learning to agree first, to find common ground before addressing differences. Ben Franklin said the same thing. Arguing might get you a victory, but it'll be empty because you lose goodwill.
And that little rhyme about William J. being right but dead because he insisted on his right of way.
Huh. Yeah. A morbid but effective reminder that being right isn't always the point. Sometimes connection is more important.
So how do you avoid arguments effectively?
Well, look at Mr. Parsons. With the stubborn tax inspector, he showed appreciation for the inspector's experience. Or the car dealer, who disarmed complainers by readily admitting small mistakes up front. It takes the wind out of their sails.
Because most arguments aren't purely logical anyway, are they?
Carnegie argues they're mostly driven by emotion, prejudice, pride. James Harvey Robinson's quote is spot on. We resent being told we're wrong and just rationalize our existing beliefs.
So direct contradiction is usually a bad idea.
Generally, yes. Ben Franklin learned to use softer language, avoid words like certainly or undoubtedly. Carnegie himself learned this with the policeman in the park agreeing with the officer's authority, first diffused the situation.
Like the architect admitting a small blueprint error right away to the hotel manager.
Exactly, just avoids the conflict. Carnegie even subtly links this to Pickett's charge at Gettysburg. Brilliant charge. Technically well executed, maybe, but ultimately a disaster. Being right doesn't guarantee success in interactions.
And the father realizing he'd alienated his son through criticism and then apologizing, that's about choosing the relationship over being right.
Absolutely. Or Rockefeller dealing with striking miners, he approached them with humility, empathy, listened to their grievances. That led to peace, not more conflict. O.L. Stroud got his rent reduced from a tough landlord just by being friendly and understanding first. F. Gale Connor got good service by appealing to the owner's pride in his business.
It seems like finding common ground and showing respect is key.
It really is. Even that story of the salesman who lost his voice but got the contract because the president spoke for him, praising his products shows the power of goodwill over argument. La Rochefoucauld noted we often don't like our friends excelling too much.
Right, which ties into not bragging, like Henrietta G. becoming more liked when she stopped talking about herself and started listening to others.
Exactly. Or Mr. Seltz managing tenants by consulting them, making them feel involved. Eugene Wesson selling sketches by asking the buyer for input, making it collaborative.
Even planning the family vacation, using the daughter's interest in history to guide the destination. It's about making them feel part of the decision.
Yeah, making them feel their ideas matter. Emerson said, "We recognize our own rejected thoughts and works of genius." Colonel House influenced President Wilson by subtly planting ideas so Wilson thought they were his own.
Or the guy choosing the ad agency that let him sell himself on them, making the other person feel smart and in control.
Malse's wisdom fits here. The rivers rule the streams because they stay below them. Sometimes leading means putting others first.
Like Sam Douglas finally appreciating his wife's gardening instead of criticizing it once he understood her enjoyment.
Or the park ranger changing his approach from ordering people to put out fires to suggesting safer ways, appealing to their better judgment. It all comes back to Principle 8. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view.
Okay, and that leads to Principle 7 of winning people over. Appeal to the nobler motives, which involves that magic phrase.
Right, the phrase. I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do.
And Carnegie insists you can say this sincerely.
He does. If you genuinely consider their background, their experiences, their situation, even with Al Capone, he suggests, if you'd lived his life, who knows? It's about finding that grain of understanding, that empathy.
Feeling sorry for them, sympathizing with their frustration, even if you don't agree with their behavior.
Exactly. He says most people, maybe three-fourths, are just craving sympathy. He learned this himself after that mistake about Louisa May Alcott's hometown.
He got angry letters, right?
Loads. His first instinct was to hit back, defend himself. But instead, he apologized sincerely for the error. That diffused it.
Like President Taft handling the ambitious mother by just expressing understanding for her disappointment.
Or Jay Mangum getting the hotel manager to agree to longer escalator repairs by appealing to the manager's desire to avoid greater inconvenience to guests, a nobler motive than just saving money.
Mrs. Norris and the piano student's nails.
A great example. Instead of criticism, she praised the nails' beauty, then framed cutting them as a sacrifice for better playing, appealing to the student's artistic aspiration.
Even the funny story about Chaliapin, the singer, and his manager using fake sympathy to get him to perform.
Yes, it worked. Or the landlord appealing to a tenant's sense of honor to stop him breaking the lease. John D. Rockefeller Jr. appealing to photographers' desire to protect children. Cyrus Curtis getting Alcott to write by appealing to her charitable side.
And that detailed example of handling a complaint by appealing to the customer's fairness and patience.
Right. Acknowledge their feelings, then appeal to their better nature. Which brings us to Principle 9. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest.
Okay, so that's appealing to nobler motives. Next is Principle 8. Dramatize your ideas, making things vivid.
Exactly. Make it memorable. Like Jim Yeamans throwing the pennies on the floor.
To show the grocer how much money he was wasting. Visual, impactful.
Totally. Or the cold cream salesman, dumping all the competitor jars on the buyer's desk, each tagged with research findings. Hard to ignore that?
Creates a spectacle, grabs attention.
Definitely. Then, Principle 9, throw down a challenge, tapping into that competitive spirit.
Charles Schwab believed in that, right? Competition drives excellence.
He really did. A challenge appeals to people with spirit. Think of Platt challenging Roosevelt to stay in the governor's race. It fired him up.
Or the King's Guard motto about overcoming fear.
Yes. Al Smith finding a warden for Sing Sing by framing it as this incredibly tough, challenging job. It attracted Lewis Laws precisely because it was hard. Lincoln did this with General Hooker, too.
Praised him first, then pointed out faults, then issued a challenge to win victories.
A masterclass. Mr. Gaw did it with the subcontractor, complimented his work, then appealed to his pride to meet the specs. Dorothy Wroblewski helped the slow teller by praising her strengths first, then challenging her gently to improve speed.
So challenge can be a powerful motivator. Now we're into part 4. Being a leader, changing people without causing offense. Principle 10 overall. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. We've touched on appreciation a lot.
We have, but this focuses on its use when you need to guide or correct someone. Carnegie warns strongly against using but after praise.
Why but?
Because it cancels out the praise. You did great work, but it makes the praise feel insincere, just a setup for the criticism.
So what's the alternative?
He suggests using and instead, like with Johnny's report card. We're proud of your math improvement, and if you put in similar effort in science, you'll do great there too. It connects the positive to the area needing work, making it feel like encouragement, not criticism.
That makes sense, like Marge Jacob getting the construction crew to clean up by praising their construction work first.
Exactly. Or Sergeant Kaiser addressing the haircut issue with reservists by praising their leadership role and appealing to them setting an example, not by criticizing their hair directly.
Which leads smoothly into Principle 11. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. Avoid the direct confrontation if possible.
Precisely. Guide them to see it themselves. And Principle 12 builds on that. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing the other person.
Show humility, make it feel less like judgment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Carnegie reflected on being too hard on his secretary, Josephine, remembering his own useful mistakes. It creates common ground. Contrast that with von Bülow almost getting sacked by criticizing Kaiser Wilhelm before praising him, a dangerous move.
And Clarence Sirhusen talking his son out of smoking by sharing his own struggles with quitting.
A perfect personal example. It makes the advice feel more like shared experience than a lecture. So, Principle 3 of this part, talk about your own mistakes first.
Okay, then Principle 13, ask questions instead of giving direct orders.
This encourages collaboration, gives people ownership. Ida Tarbell noted Owen D. Young rarely gave orders. He'd suggest or ask questions. You might consider this, or what do you think about that?
Makes people feel respected, part of the process, like the factory foreman getting that tough order done.
Yeah, he didn't just issue commands. He asked his team, What can we do? How can we handle this? He got their ideas, fostered a we can do it spirit by involving them.
So principle 4 of part 4. Ask questions, don't give orders. Next, principle 14. Let the other person save face. This feels crucial for maintaining dignity.
Absolutely vital. If you have to correct or change something, find a way for the person to not feel publicly humiliated or diminished. Look how GE handled Steinmetz.
The brilliant scientist who wasn't a great manager.
Right. They didn't fire him or demote him, obviously. They gave him a new prestigious title. Consulting engineer, essentially moving him sideways gracefully, letting him save face while putting someone else in charge of the department.
Smart. Unlike the supervisor who just berated an employee for a mistake.
Right. That led to resentment, resignation. The other supervisor, who focused on fixing the problem without blame, that employee became loyal and careful. It's all about preserving dignity.
Even small acknowledgments matter, like young Charles Dickens being thrilled by praise from an editor.
It fueled his ambition. Keith Roper turning around the struggling printer just by specifically praising the good parts of his work shows the power of focusing on strengths.
William James said we all have untapped potential.
And believing in someone can unlock it, like Marie the dishwasher. Someone saw potential beyond her current job, told her so, and her whole demeanor changed. She started living up to that belief.
Or the salesman going back to Jack, admitting his own oversight first, then appealing to Jack's reputation for fairness to get him to reconsider. That saves Jack's face.
Dr. Fitzhugh and the charwoman's dusting. He didn't confront her. He mentioned the tarnished cup holder to a patient within her hearing. Indirect, letting her save face and correct the issue herself, which she did exceptionally well afterwards.
It's often more effective, like the dance teachers finding that praising the positives works better than nagging the negatives.
Or, learning bridge became easier when someone was told they had a natural flair. It made the challenge seem less daunting. Even Ely Culbertson, the bridge expert, was apparently inspired early on by a compliment about his flair for the game.
Making things seem achievable, like the father helping his son David with math by linking it to his interest in electronics, making it positive.
Exactly. Or Colonel House stopping Brian's trip by saying he was too important to leave. Not that the trip was a bad idea. Always let them save face.
Which connects to principle 9 of this part. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. We also have principle 15. Give a dog a good name. Basically, give someone a positive reputation to live up to.
Right. And principle 16. Make the fault seem easy to correct. Don't make improvement seem overwhelming.
And finally, principle 17, the last one we'll cover. Making people glad to do what you want. This wraps it up nicely.
It does. Think Napoleon creating the Legion of Honor, giving people status, recognition, a toy, as Carnegie puts it. That made them want to serve bravely.
Or Mrs. Gent solving the lawn trampling problem.
By making the ringleader kid the detective, in charge of keeping others off, gave him authority, made him want to protect the lawn.
In the stockroom example, getting John to clean it not by ordering him, but by framing it around his benefit, easier work, and the company's image. Appealing to his interests and pride.
That's the essence of it. Understand their motivations, frame the request accordingly, make them feel good about saying yes.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the big takeaway seems pretty clear. Understanding and actually using these principles from Carnegie can genuinely change how you interact with people, leading to, well, better outcomes all around.
Absolutely. And for you listening, seeking that quick yet deep understanding, these principles offer so many aha moments without being overwhelming. Remember, these aren't just nice ideas. They're proven by real experiences, real research.
So here's a final thought to chew on. Which one of these principles really clicked with you today? Is there a situation you're facing right now where you could try applying it, even in a small way? Just start observing interactions through this lens. You might be surprised what you see.
And hey, if we've sparked your interest, definitely check out the original book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. There's so much more detail, so many more examples and nuances in there that can really deepen your understanding and help you put these powerful ideas into practice.